I got to thinking that maybe I needed a sort of drinks table to place next to this sun lounger so that I could relax, maybe put a book or a cup of coffee or a beer or whatever I'm having at the time next to the seat. The only thing I really need before I start is the measurement of how high I want the table to be, and I'm going to make it about 22 inches, and about 22 inches is good enough. I don't need it perfect. The idea is to make this table from scraps of wood and bits and bobs that I've got lying around. So basically those 4 bits of wood, the tile and the plywood, are going to make the top. The top needs to go on a frame. This is basically just going to be the frame. So those 4 pieces of wood are going to make the legs. It's going to have another frame at the bottom that's going to be filled in with wood. So these 2 bits of wood are going to be what I use to fill the frame in at the bottom. This piece of wood will be big enough to make the bottom frame. The process for making the tabletop is put a rebate in these 4 pieces of wood, and the rebate needs to be as deep as the thickness of the tile and the plywood, with maybe 2 millimeters added for whatever adhesive I'm going to use. So I'll make a 1 centimeter wide, 2 centimeter deep rebate. So I want to come in a centimetre and I want to go up 2 centimetres, which is something like that. 2 centimetres. So now I need to cut upwards so that the cut meets in that top corner. To cut the plywood so that it's the same size as the tile, it's not square. So the way I'm going to get around that is to make the plywood very slightly bigger. I'll just jiggle the tile inside the centre of the frame to make it look best, and then grout it. And there is our plywood base. Now then, the only thing I'm worried about when I'm making these cuts is to make sure that these big holes are not in the frame. So I'll use my laser, just go slightly past, make the first cut. There we go. That's 4 pieces of tabletop with 145 degree. So all I've got to do now is to cut 2 of those pieces to the right length and 2 of those pieces to the right width. And the easy way to work out how long the pieces of wood want to be is to put the inset in between 2 of the pieces of wood in the rebates. So the width is just this measurement. Each piece needs to be, that's 16 1/4, and just give yourself a little bit of room to play with. So don't cut it to exactly 16 1/4. And if you look, the tile is right up against the wood, so I'm going to make that 16 3/8. Be careful how you do your marking. So assuming that I've got that right, all I've got to do now is cut these 2 pieces to exactly the same size. Slide this along until it's touching the workpiece and then clamp it. So push it back till it's touching, hold it in place. Get my second piece across till it stops, push it against the fence, make the second cut. So that's the 2 sides that make up the width cut. So now I've got to cut the length. So I'll do the same thing again. It's about 17 3/8. So we're going to cut this one to 17 1/2. Now then, that's actually a lovely mitred frame. That basically is a tabletop constructed, but we've got to stick it together, which is very, very simple. Any exterior grade wood glue will do. That's all 4 pieces glued. Once you've juggled about with everything to get it where you want it, you can actually tighten the clamp. These pieces are what will make the 4 legs. So I need to subtract the thickness of the top from 22 inches to give me the length I need to cut the wood to. That's 20 3/4. I think what I'll do is I'll just cut these 4 holes out and then we'll measure our 20 3/4. So I'm going to mark the first one, and then I'm going to set the stop on the mitre saw table to cut the other 3 the same length. Each leg is going to be sliced down its length. We'll measure the total width of the wood, which is 3.5 inches. The thickness is about 1. What we've got to do is minus the thickness of the wood from the width. So it's 3.5, so that takes us to 2.5, and then we've got to split 2.5 in half, which is 1 1/4. So basically, if we slice 1 1/4 inches down here and then stick it to this, it should actually make a reasonable L-shaped leg. Right, so that's all 4 legs sliced lengthways. That's what we're trying to achieve. I'm just going to glue them and I'll sand them later on. Plonk that on there. Slide it to the edge. We've assembled the legs and they're gluing. Now we need to make the frame that goes on here that the legs attach to. I'm going to slice the wood down the middle. We've sliced our piece of wood down the middle. We've got 17.5 inches going across there. We know that the legs are about 1 inch thick. 17.5 minus 1 inch for this side and minus 1 inch for that side, so minus 2 inches, so that's 15.5. And because we don't want the actual legs to be right flush with the edge, we need to come in about 1/4 inch so it looks better, and 1/4 inch on that side, which is 1/2 inch, so that takes us down to 15 inches. And this side is going to be 16 3/8, minus 2 inches is 14 3/8, minus 1/2 inch, 1/4 inch either side, is 13 7/8. Now you're starting to see the general setup of the table. I think I can take these legs off the clamps now. So that's our frame gluing, the one that we're going to attach underneath the tabletop. So we'll leave that for now. I've got to make the frame for the inside. Now the frame needs to be exactly the same size as this one, so that makes life a little bit easier. So for the bottom frame, down the middle of the legs, I've just measured this, and if I slice this in half I can get all 4 lengths from this one piece of wood, and then I'll make the frame, which is exactly the same measurements as that one, length and width. Right, so I'll do that now. I won't bother videoing that. I'll just show you the actual frame when it's made, because it's exactly the same process as making that one. That's our second frame cut out. Now remember I said I was going to infill that with wood, so basically I'm going to put wood across there. I'll actually rebate it on the saw. So I'm not going to video that because you guys have seen me rebating already, so I'll do that now. So there's our rebated frame. Now the last bit of cutting we've got to do is to cut the wood to go inside of this. It's 12 3/4 inches. So that's 2 pieces cut. We've got to find another 3.5 inches. I'm going to split that down the middle. So it's 1 3/4, and I'll put 1 on this side and 1 on that side. That is a bottom base cut. It's just ready to assemble now. So we've now assembled the bottom frame and boarding, the top frame, 4 legs, the tabletop, plywood and tile. I think I'll stick the plywood inside the tabletop. I've reached a point now where I'm going to start sanding. I'll be starting off on a 60 grit, and then I'll move to a 120. I've sanded everything down. I've cut up some pieces of wood and put them in the tabletop so you can see what that looks like. And you can see that looks quite nice. I've left a lot of the holes in, especially on the legs, but on the top I've filled them. I just think a top should be kind of smooth without holes in it. So what you need to do is you need to make life as easy as possible so that you can speed up the gluing process. I'm going to cut 4 pieces of wood that I can just chock this shelf up with, and when I drop it down it rests against the pieces of wood, and then I know it's in the right place. And then the last one, there. That just makes it easy for me to put the thing together. There is a very, very easy way to make a clamp that'll do exactly the same thing, and that's to get yourself a piece of rope. Make sure it's big enough to go all the way around what it is you're going to glue, and then put a knot in it reasonably close to what it is you're gluing. A piece of wood or even a pencil, say. Put the pencil in there and start twisting it round. Can you see that tightening? Then all you've got to do is tuck your pencil under the rope when you've got it tight enough. What I am going to do is mark roughly in pencil where the wood becomes visible, so I know where to glue to. And I'm just going to glue the legs. The final check, that's fine, so we'll start tightening the clamp up. Now pull the legs into the frame. There, that's that done. So next, put in our spacers. All I've got to do now is there. Now you see how easy that is now. You just drop them down onto the chocks, and then I'm going to clamp this together. So that's been clamped for about an hour and a half. It should really clamp for longer, but I really want to get this project finished. The base of the table assembled. Now, by far the easiest way to fix a tabletop onto the frame, I've just placed the legs onto the tabletop, and I've gone round to place it roughly in the centre. The actual drilled holes are not the slots, go into the frame in the centre of each length. So that's all 4 brackets on. Now wood, when it expands, it tends not to expand along the grain, it tends to expand across the grain. And the slots, you've got a slot, the 2 slots are at 90 degrees to each other. The grain's running this way on this side, so I want the slot that's going perpendicular to the way the grain's running to allow it to expand and contract. Right, that's it. That's how easy it is to fix the tabletop. It does look quite nice, inlaid with wood. Very, very simple to do as well. Now I'm going to actually put the tile in. Right, I'm happy with that now. Let's just centre it off, and then we'll leave that to set. To finish the table, I'm just going to give it a coat of boiled linseed oil as soon as it's going outside. So that's it, got a coat of linseed oil on. It's still drying, but it's, to all intents and purposes, now that's finished. That's the table finished. Zero cost because I had everything in the garage I needed to make it. It's very sturdy, quite heavy, so it's not going to blow around. Obviously if the wind picks up or if the rain's coming, I'll just put it inside in the conservatory or something to keep it out of the way. I've really enjoyed making that. It took far longer to video it than it did to make it. I hope you enjoyed the video. Feel free to ask any questions. If you leave any questions in the comments section, I'll do my best to answer them. Feel free to subscribe, and thank you for watching.